Alrighty, welcome back to another episode of Unhinged and Immoral, the Sidebar Patreon episode. Today we have Miss Simone.
Ooh.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi.
We're super
How are you?
excited.
I'm good. I'm just trying to survive. I'm gonna be so honest.
It's
Same.
been a long day already.
Yeah,
I feel like it's just we only a couple hours in, but it's just been a long day.
yeah, for
But
sure.
I'm excited because I know like your content is really pop culture based. You do like a lot of analysis of stuff, which I love, and there's so much going on so that we can really talk about. But I firstly want to talk to you about the TikTok ban because you were like one of the first people I've seen who was really talking heavily in close friends, which no one outed and put
Thank God.
ratted on you,
Whew.
and in public, but like just kind of how the transition, if we lose TikTok, how do we transition onto other apps? I know you said before we started the recording that it's going good, but I did want to ask you like for this, how is the transition from TikTok to Instagram like going for you?
It's been good. I kind of been like transitioning ever since like the official announcement when Joe signed the bill.
Back
So
in
it's
March.
been mainly
Yeah.
my thing since like August, and I've pretty much been situated good. Now I'm mainly focusing on YouTube because I've been slacking when it comes to long form. So that's like my main priority for like the first month.
Same. I had started with my long form, and then since I've been in Dallas a couple of days, so I haven't made any of like my nightly with Machiavelli videos because it's like I'm just conjumbled all over the place. I don't have like my whole setup. I'm like I need to make a video tonight. Long form is definitely so different from TikTok, and I feel like you have to be so much more intentional with it. So it's like you have to be really committed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you really do. You have to like be intentional. You have to think ahead of time. You can't like, with TikTok, you can literally just pick that shit up and go, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, not quite with YouTube, and they will not reward foolishness on there. You have to be
Yep.
correct, and so it's like, ugh, fine.
You have to put some effort in.
Yeah, they want effort. It's like, I guess, sure.
So, what is like something that you're looking forward to in terms of with Instagram? Because I know I saw this in one of your videos that Instagram is much more easy. She said something kind of akin to what Jake said the other day. Instagram is easy to like translate to if you're trying to make money. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get what you're trying to say.
Instagram is an app that if this is like your business, being on
Yeah,
Instagram is going to
Mm-hmm.
it's
obviously
more
be
profitable.
beneficial for you. Whereas TikTok
Yeah.
is more of a shooting the shits. I think that like right now with like the way that like TikTokers are transitioning, you're kind of seeing who is serious about making content. Like people who are
Mm-hmm.
being very intentional with okay, I'm transitioning my content onto Instagram, I'm transitioning my content onto YouTube. Are you finding that it's is your content translating like for like so for example you make the videos where you kind of look up like not look up but you analyze these situations in pop culture I would think that'd be really easy to translate into long form content because your videos are already somewhat long form content now. Are you kind of seeing that already, or do you think you feel like you're putting way more work into YouTube than you were to like TikTok?
So I think with Instagram, it's kind of easier because like my audience kind of knows what I post. Because usually with TikTok, it's like usually like my audience is smaller than my followers, and then it's just like people who see me on the For You page. Where with Instagram, I get introduced to my followers first and foremost, and then new people find me. My videos be ending up in random places, and I have to get like a random like follow at one time. Like if it pops off, I'm just like, oh, this is like new people. They must like the thing I posted like yesterday. And then with YouTube, I kind of get to extend that kind of like analysis that I do in a long form kind of way. Are like the views in the first 24 hours the same? No, but that's just me putting in like the effort. And I think with TikTok, it's like easier because like I get chances to shoot kind of like darts when it comes to videos I put off. It's just like, okay, if this pops up, we're good. If
Yeah,
this isn't hitting, then like maybe I gotta change something. So
yeah,
TikTok has made me like better in regards to what's hitting with my audience versus what's not hitting. And then
yeah.
I can take that over to Instagram and YouTube and just see how that goes.
Got it. So you kind of use TikTok as like a case study for like what
Other
can
stuff.
work for your other
Yeah.
things. Okay, that's interesting. Did you go to school for anything like this? Like, were you planning to kind of enter into this space, like career wise, or was this kind of something you stumbled upon?
Oh, absolutely not. I have a whole bachelor's degree in criminology. I just started like TikTok before COVID. I'm just anytime someone asks me, I'm just like, I really just started just because I was bored.
Yeah.
Honestly, isn't that the story for all of us? I wanted to
Right.
ask you something
Yep.
very specific, simply because I know you do like pop culture analysis, and both Jamila and I are still very lost. Can you explain Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni? I,
Oh,
I
I knew
literally
someone would ask me that.
no. Okay, so this is the
Please.
thing. I have been trying to follow it ever
I'm so
since.
outside of
I'm
white
just gonna
culture
tell
that
you
I
what,
be.
like what
Oh, girl, it's
I
fine.
see and perceive. So
Yeah.
I knew that Blake Lively was doing It Ends With Us.
Mm-hmm.
Colleen Hoover's already like, okay, whatever. The book.
Hmm.
I remember when they were doing like the press tour for it when it first
Mm-hmm.
released.
She was
She was getting in hot water because she was trying to sell like her
like
clothes and her
Hmm.
fair skin. It
right,
was just
like
like
wear your
it was just
florals.
kind
I
of
remember that.
weird, and it was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
okay, and then it just seemed like out of nowhere. Months after the movie is like I don't want to say irrelevant, but it's just like the
Mm-hmm.
movie's no longer relevant. Now it's all this beef with
Hmm.
Justin Baldoni. We're learning all this stuff, and now I'm kind of seeing. I recently saw like yesterday or the day before he left her a message like late at night. It was just like it's so much, and people are
Yeah.
putting
Yeah.
so many opinions out, and I don't even know how everything connects. Seriously, and I'm like I gotta
Yeah.
ask
It's
someone
so
who I know who
confusing.
would
Yeah.
know.
So I only found out about it like back in August because I already knew that the movie was coming out. I remember when like
Yeah.
Justin had like announced it like before COVID, and as someone who's part of book talk, I was not looking forward to it because that puts like all romance books in such a bad light.
Mm.
I was that's kind of where my eye roll came because I like I'm not on I wouldn't consider myself book talk, but I would consider myself a reader. And Colleen Hoover is like obviously a controversial figure if you're like reading romance
Oh, so
novels.
she is. So I didn't
Mhm.
know. I don't
Called the
really know her
author
lore like
already
that.
because the book is basically
Gotcha.
about kind of romanticized domestic violence.
Oh.
But
Mhm.
the only reason I let the white bitches have that is because if you read the urban fictions, it's a lot of that already. Like it's a lot of like
Mm.
Yeah.
he slapped the shit out of me and then we fucked and da-da-da. You know, so it's like
Mm.
Mhm.
that happens in that genre. But I think by Colleen Hoover being obviously white and so mainstream,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
she put it like they pedestaled it, obviously, like they just pedestaled
Mm.
it.
Yeah.
So that was already the critique of making the movie going into it,
Gotcha.
Mhm.
and then the way that
And
Blake was
then with
carrying on was like,
yeah, and then when the press tour started, we like immediately were like seeing stuff. We was like, why are we promoting this like a rom com? Like we
Mm.
already knew like the book was gonna be hard to promote as a movie,
yeah,
and we're just going with tricking the audience. That's some weird shit. Like you could have just gone to streaming and just had the liberties. Why are we trying to do theatrical?
well,
Yeah.
didn't they say Colleen Hoover wanted Blake Lively to play Homegirl?
Yes. And I think that's what really like pissed fans off because they like if you read the book, like they're like real young in the books. Like in like
Mm.
both timelines. So they're really mad at like, why you got somebody in their mid 30s playing somebody supposed to be like 26, 27?
Mm-hmm.
And like I get it, you're trying to get like big names to like sell this movie, have people coming. So that's when like the movie kind of like first got like it's kind of like bad beef with fans. Again, I was still not looking forward to it coming out.
Yeah.
And then the press tour started, and then people started noticing, wait, why ain't Justin with everybody at the premiere? This is weird.
Mm. And so the boy is, I guess his name is Justin. Was he involved in this movie, or is it completely a separate movie that's now kind of triggering this situation?
No, so then he directed this movie.
So he stars in the movie as one of the leads. He's the director of the movie, and his production company is producing it, and then Sony just like distributes. So he has three job titles altogether.
So, but this is the same movie of This Ends With Us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Mhm.
what I figured. That's what I got. Okay, and so from what I picked up on my comment section or whatever, Blake like there's like two conversations happening. Like a lot of people think Blake Lively is essentially like a bitch, and that she has a bad reputation just like interacting with people, and she doesn't really have the best people skills and all of these things, and she just has all of these kind of characteristic flaws. And then on one end, it seems like the Justin character is being accused of sexual harassment in some sort of way for the I guess the way the film was filmed and like the way the characters were interacting, and now he's suing her for I guess defamation. If am I
Oh yeah, you right there because like
okay?
they've like sued each other back and forth. So the first like Blake filed a complaint in like December 1st with like the civil court, so it wasn't officially a lawsuit yet. Justin went and sued New York Times for putting out the story about her filing a complaint, and then he went and sued Blake and Ryan for defamation. So it's basically 2 lawsuits plus a complaint.
Okay.
So that's kind of like how it is. I think I got that right.
Got it.
Okay.
And so, who do you believe?
Yeah, I don't. What's going on with it?
I feel like this book should have never gotten adapted, and we should never been here.
Well,
Got it. And 'cause
well-
I really have seen, like, I don't know if it's a 50-50 split, but I've seen both sides saying like a lot of things, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, and I don't know enough about anything to even have an opinion. Of course, I know Blake Lively is very problematic in general. I've heard about the blackface. I've seen the plantation
wedding.
slave wedding,
Yeah.
and all of these things. So like clearly there's something there, and then also there's like evidence coming out of, like, I remember somebody said Blake accused him of kissing her for too long or something like that. Then he dropped the raw clip and footage and was like, where did this happen? So I'm like, ooh, like, oh my gosh, like, what's happening? Like, I'm trying to figure, like, well, who's gonna win this damn lawsuit? It's just so convoluted at this point, and people are talking on the internet as if I already know what's going on, and I get it because that's how I do too.
I was gonna say it's been going on for
I'm
so
trying.
long, but I
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
I feel like I found out about it way too late. Like
Yes,
like the plot was
same.
too deep in
And
for
it's
me
too
to
hard to
just
figure it
catch
out.
on. And I'm trying to figure out, like, the last time I ran across like something that was so convoluted that I just did not understand. Like I really don't even understand where it started and where it ends and where we're at. The thing, like, I agree with you, Jamila. It seems like it's a 50-50 split, but the things
Yeah.
I've seen is like people have good points on both sides. So it's like when this at a voicemail of him, the 7 minutes dropped, it's like, well, this is why you can't trust men, and, you know, sexual assault on women. I'm like, oh, that's a good point. But then the whole thing about Blake being a white woman and crocodile tears, oh, also a good point. Like, what do you believe? Like, what's going on?
It's
So
just-
I do know
yeah.
that Ryan Reynolds is somewhat involved. I
Right.
also did watch something where Ryan is heavily involved, that him and Blake somewhat hijacked the movie from Justin. It's not, yeah, and I don't even know how Ryan comes into play. I mean, I
At
know
first,
that's
I thought
Blake's
he was just
husband.
being implicated because he's the husband. But
Yeah,
now,
but
like,
he
what
was
you're
obviously
saying,
he was
like, he's
involved in the
also
film as
doing-
well. So it's like, well, that's a
okay.
whole new
Yeah.
like piece here. That's okay. I don't know. I'm just gonna continue to
So
ask
much.
everybody, because I'm like, until it
Yeah.
makes sense to me, I have to ask.
And are they gonna, like, are they in court currently, or is it still just like the lawsuits have been filed? Like, are they, like, has the court hearing started? Because that's when I can really get into it. I want to hear them on a stand. I want to see it. That's when I really need to tap in. Like, when does that start?
Yeah. So I think it was this week. The judge announced their court date for March 2026. I was shocked that they have it that far out. I'm like, why not March 2025? I can't go for another year of people talking about this.
But you know what does start March 2025? Diddy's trials.
Oh wait, I thought it started in May.
Possibly May. It was
I only know the date of the trial because my mutual teases, she's been tracking that thing every single week.
It might be May. You might be right.
But the thing is, we're not even gonna get to see that because that's the
and that
feds.
pisses me off so much. But you know, they'll
Yeah.
be able to, like, report on, like, there'll be, you know, reporters there. I'm
He's
sure
never
Megan
getting
and
out
her
of jail.
Bob will be there. But I cannot wait to get the information on that guy. I just wish they would allow cameras like it was the YSL trial, because I was locked in
Oh.
the YSL trial. That was so
If they had cameras at the YSL trial, we need it at the Diddy trial. We need it at the Diddy trial. And I think they probably don't want to because of what names might come up, because we know what's going to happen.
And it's like, y'all might as well give us cameras, because we're gonna get, it's public record. We're gonna get this information regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, all the court reporters who are going to be in, like, we're going to get the information.
Yeah, I just want to be able
He's
to
just
see
not going to
his
get out of
face.
jail because, you know, the thing
Yeah.
about it, the feds play the long game. The feds don't come after
Oh,
you
yeah.
unless they
They're
can
not
nail you to the
playing
cross.
around.
So it's really
For them
like,
to do a raid like that, nigga,
Yeah.
they had so much shit on you already.
They've been looking at him for years.
at this
God,
point,
I cannot
it's just a
wait.
matter of what you was doing. Like, we're just going to simply find out
Mm-hmm.
how deep this goes. Because I'll be honest, not that I mean, you know how, like, people will talk about how the black community was aware of R. Kelly, and I can say that
Yeah.
I knew that Diddy was questionable because there was always rumors about him not paying people and da-da-da.
Right, it was almost the, it was always the
Yeah.
financial
It was
tip.
always more the
And just him
financials.
not being
I
good,
will be
yeah.
honest, I did not know Diddy was this sinister. I really didn't.
No.
When the video
Neither.
dropped of him whooping Cassie's ass in that
Bro,
dragging her in the elevator, I was actually
That
shocked.
was a lot.
I
That was a lot.
shocked. I said, "Oh my God, this nigga is horrible." Like you said, I always knew of Diddy to be a scammer of sorts. You know, he was
Yeah.
clearly, the music exec. All of his artists were doing horribly, so it's like obviously he's not a good person. But
Right.
from our viewpoint, he was still kind of just like the funny guy. Like he seemed to be a good dad. These are the things that we knew about him. There were a couple of things that we knew to be true. We knew he whatever artist he would grab was gonna at some point end up broke and not have a career.
Oh yeah.
We knew he was gonna do his Diddy Bop. We knew he was gonna have a 50 reunion tour for 5 years
Yeah.
straight. We knew that he was a quote unquote good dad. We praised him for his fatherhood, even showing how he pulled in that oldest one, Quentin, even though it's
Quincy.
not his kid, Quincy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quincy, like, so these things
You
and
could
to
still
see
technically
he's a
praise him
sexual
for his
demon.
fatherhood because all his kids are standing by him. But that's like
Right.
what is that? The example of people being so multifaceted. Like you can be
Right.
such a bad person over here,
can be
but you
all
can be
of
like a
these
good
things.
dad. Like
Yeah.
all these things can be true at once. And when everyone was making these videos, in my head, I think I said this in one of my videos. I didn't get too deep into it, but I was like, it's interesting how like right now, because obviously of how heinous the shit he's doing or he's done, we can't acknowledge people being multifaceted, but like in other situations we can. I think because so often, a lot of times, if you're a bad person over here, it does trickle into other parts of your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
But the fact that nigga has 11 kids and all them kids fuck with him, even the one that's not biologically his fuck with him, that has to say
Yeah.
something about him as a
Yeah.
father very specifically. So I
and
can't get mad at his
yeah.
kids for like being on the internet and being
That's
like,
what I
stop
was
talking
gonna
about my
say.
fucking daddy, because you don't
Yeah.
know that person. And the same
Yeah.
when kind of like Aoki and Aoki was going through that a couple years ago when the shit about her dad was coming out.
Yeah.
Even though on the flip, like we found out later on that her dad was some like abusive to her and her sister.
Yeah.
I always just felt so much empathy because it's your dad, it's your daddy, it's your mama
It's
at the
your
end of the day,
dad.
and
Yeah. They got a different version of him.
having to
Yeah.
reconcile like the actions, like first of all reconciling that your parents are just people, that's number one, but then sometimes your parents aren't good people, but they're still your parents, so you're still
And
gonna have
that's
to
a hard thing to
Yeah.
digest, and that's why I never really commented too much on like the kids showing up to the courthouse, calling them, and even making the Instagram post that Quincy did. It's like y'all are too quick to like condemn these kids, and it's like we don't really know if these kids, like obviously the older ones, they're thinking like, oh, they were involved in something, but we really don't know that, and it's like we really should kind of just be a little bit empathetic, because like at the end of the day, that's their damn daddy, and it's not like he wasn't a present father. That's like we can't say that. He was a very present father. Like he raised the kids, and
Yeah.
none of them would say otherwise. So it's like them supporting their dad is not. I that's not the part that I'm going to talk about. Like
And
I'm going to
also
talk
the way
about
they
Diddy
ran up
being
in
a
them
demon.
that house and had them boys on the wall. If they had
Oh,
been
yeah.
they would have arrested them with their daddy.
They would have arrested
They
them
would have taken them in.
because they're grown.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
Justin is a year older than we are, so he's 30.
Yeah.
Christian's
Yeah.
26. Like they're
Quincy's
actually
like
not
33 or
children. So
something.
if
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
niggas had been involved, they also would
They
be
would've
in the
grabbed
jail.
them.
They would be
Oh,
in the jail.
absolutely.
And considering how weirdly enough good of a dad he is, I wouldn't be shocked if he kept that completely away from them. You know
Oh,
what I'm saying? Especially
absolutely.
the girls. Like
Especially the daughters.
so it's like you got to kind of give a little bit of grace for the kids. Like just child, they already, baby, I promise you they are feeling it. They
Yeah.
don't want to
Oh, yeah.
show it, but I promise you, like their mom's dead,
Well,
and everyone's saying that their dad did it, and their
that's
dad is
crazy.
in prison, in jail awaiting
That's the
trial,
crazier
and is
part.
going to go prison. I promise you, even if they did a little something bad, they're getting their they're getting their lashes right now.
Yeah.
This is some sick ass shit to be involved in. Like,
Yeah.
damn, I can't even imagine finding out this type of information about my dad. If somebody today was to say this about my dad, I would be like, I don't believe you, you lying bastard. Like I would, like
you bastard bitch.
like, are you kidding me? I too.
No,
like,
that's
I
literally
can't-
like when people be
yeah.
like, oh, da, 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 and the kids be coming out just off emotion, like, fuck y'all. I'm like, I'm not even
Yeah.
gonna get mad at you. That is your daddy.
I get it.
You ain't
Yeah.
gonna hear this right now. Fair. Fair.
Yeah, I get it, especially with Christian, how he was like coming at people. I'm like, Christian, please, like I wouldn't want them to be on the internet because everybody be talking. I would have just taken their phones. But like looking at everything, I'm just like, I get it. You gotta be
Yeah.
defensive, even though he allegedly naming some stuff. So that's just him. I don't know about the other two, but I understand them defending their dad.
Yeah.
I want to know if he was see this is the other piece. That's why I'm waiting for the trial, because do you remember when everything with Cassie first dropped and what I said? I remember everyone was like, "Oh, she's lying, she's lying." personally, me, I said no because I kept up with Cassie and Dee's relationship, and I said this shit is making sense. I think I believe her, and so for
Yeah.
I just not to feel vindicated because it's not me, but I definitely understood that Cassie put that lawsuit out basically like, okay, if you don't pay up, I'm gonna blow the whistle and tear all this shit down. And that's really what happened.
Hmm.
Like you could have, when you think about in
And I'm so
hindsight,
glad she got her money before that trial started.
Yep. Before
if
they
he, if
froze the assets.
Because she's getting money and he's going down.
I
God
was gonna
damn.
say,
Yep.
Yes.
if he had simply just paid that lady what she was, because you see she and it also was like, remember she got and she left him so quickly and got married so quickly and all this stuff,
Oh
and
yeah,
her
I remember when
husband
all that happened.
And,
I was
and
like,
right
girl,
when she
you were ready to
really
and
move
her
kind of
on.
husband been
disappeared,
shading
she
Diddy
kind of
this whole
disappeared.
time. If
Yeah.
you because remember the husband was her trainer, so that's the other piece that I feel like people often, whenever they see her husband shading Diddy, you're forgetting that this was her trainer and he was also seeing
He knew
firsthand
some
what the
shit.
fuck was going on. And then he came and did the whole swooped and saved her and all that
Yeah.
type of shit, and they rode off into the sunset. But when he be online on the story shading Diddy, he is talking from like firsthand witness account. So
Yeah.
it always gave like, no, she not lying, because I don't think he would just be saying all this shit out his ass. I really don't.
Oh yeah. Every time I saw him posting, I was like, does he know something that we don't? And then looking back at it now, I'm just like, oh, you were defending your wife. Because
He
you knew
Knew
some shit that
everything.
hadn't even come out
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah, he knew plenty. And I often think because someone said the type of lawyer that Cassie had was specifically a lawyer that targets like organizations and stuff. And I was like, I wonder if when she had sought out her lawyer, if they started doing digging and found out that he was under investigation, because the timing of everything played
Hmm.
so incredibly. Because there's no way that Cassie's lawsuit is what triggered this investigation. No, 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 no.
Oh yeah,
Like he had already,
no.
because it happened so fast. I'm like, I feel like somebody tipped her off, like now was the time, and somebody probably
Yeah.
said, wait, because there's the time is going to come where this is going to make sense. Because also, it's very obvious that Diddy knew he was being investigated too, the way he was moving. So I think that somebody tipped her off and was like, now's your chance to move. And it
Yeah.
just worked out so
Yeah.
seamlessly.
Even if
Yeah.
you think about like the past 3 years with him and Carisha and how he like
Hmm.
literally rebranded as Carisha's lover boy. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like,
Changed his name to Love and shit.
do you
Drop the Love album.
name the
Start
baby
giving
Love?
everybody their masters back. Like, why are you trying to give everybody
I
their
knew when he
masters
gave the
back?
masters back that something was coming. That
Because
place
that
was
greedy
moved.
nigga would
I was
never.
like, oh. And I thought it was
Yeah.
money laundering. Turns out it was something else.
Right. Like that greedy nigga would never give y'all your shit back for no reason. He's trying to clean up shop. But he didn't clean up enough because they found all that baby oil. And that was so disturbing to me.
That was the weirdest part. I'm like, what? You got all this stuffed up in the house?
Because he was in there having those orgies, so they just had to have it readily available.
That was a lot
What's
of
so
shit.
crazy is I
Nasty
actually
boy.
can I be frank? I don't think there's anything wrong with being a freaky ass nigga if it
For
as
sure.
long as everyone
Yeah.
is consenting to like. So if you want to hold like mass orgies like that, I truly think that that's your business. Like, cool. I think where we're losing the plot is the drugging, the whole
And
Yeah.
forcing people to be
hostage,
there.
they can't leave, they can't come in.
Yeah.
Like that's where
It
you're.
got real
Yeah.
unconsensual.
Yeah.
And that's where you lost us, dude. That's where you lost us. It's just
Yep.
like, oh, you're sick in the head, and honestly, like I said, I can't wait for this trial to start because I want to know every waking detail. Unfortunately, I know I know he's not going to get on the stand. If he has a lawyer
Oh,
worth a
hell no,
damn,
he's not getting on
he's
the
not going to
stand.
get on the stand. Even
If
though
he,
we would want that, but
I feel like if he would give like a bigger performance than R. Kelly did on that one
oh
Gayle King interview.
Oh my
yeah,
I was
yeah,
okay. Darrington, when he was in town, was just imitating that, like, and he was imitating
He was.
Keenan Thompson's. He wasn't imitating R. Kelly directly. He was imitating Keenan Thompson's SNL spoof of that.
Yeah, I know
Like,
which one you're
and I
talking
can't
about.
read. Oh, can y'all hear me?
Which
It's
was
like
so
so
genius.
funny,
Yeah.
perfect.
And like, as sick of a man as he is, thank you so much for giving me that interview. Thank you so much for opening your mouth to Gayle King and sitting there and giving us that theater worthy performance. Because my God, this is historical. This right here is what I call cultural moments.
No,
Yep.
what
Had
was
to be
it?
there.
What was he when he was crying? He said, "I'm fighting for my fucking life."
Fighting for my life. I don't know how to hold tight people. Like, wow.
The memes we
Insane.
got
I
from
was like,
that
the memes
interview.
we got from that was insane, and I watched it live. Like I remember
Same.
watching it,
I
being
I
did
like,
remember
too.
when it dropped. I said immediately.
and
I
mind
was,
you,
Mhm.
Gail was sitting over there like, Robert.
and I know she was thinking to herself,
She
"Thank you for
Gail
this
was
moment
keeping
as well,
so
because
calm.
now
I know she
I'm
wanted to
iconic."
break her
She was
so
so
bad.
I
blown.
know Gail
She
was
was
so
so
glad she got
blown.
the interview.
She was if you like as so after we had rewatched the Kenan Thompson spoof, I had went back and rewatched it, and it's funny because when Leslie Jordan was playing Gail, you see her like get into like auntie mode during the interview, and it's been so long. I said, "Oh, I forgot Gail went kind of auntie on him, like sit down,
Yeah.
Robert, like, like you're excited, sit like I forgot she went there, like she kind of had to break character a little bit, like that's how
Yeah,
crazy that nigga was
she
Yeah,
got
getting."
into
call by
her
his
auntie
first
bag.
name.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
like
she definitely got
Robert,
in there.
like oh my
She was
god.
so like, okay, now listen, nigga. She almost said nigga.
Yeah, no, for real. No, that dead ass. Like that interview is crazy.
Just a mess. So how have you been feeling watching all of the TikTok beefs unfold over the past couple of months?
Woof.
Considering you do a lot of pop culture, you know, things. What do you feel? Kind of now that we're in the calm down of TikTok beefs. I'm sure another one will be coming very soon. We're due for another.
I feel like the moment you said that, so it's gonna happen this week.
Right, for sure.
Probably this week or next week. I don't know, because for me, I'm always tapping in whenever like it's like on chapter 4 or 5. Because like I don't know why, because I've just been so busy with work. I'm not tapped into like stuff happening on the
Yeah.
app like that anymore. So I'm always tuning in like when it's like a weekend. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to track back, like, okay, did this start here? Did this start here?
Yeah.
Now
As you
there
to do.
are like stuff where I see it, I was like, okay, this person was talking slick. And then at the same time, I'm like, okay, I understand what this person's saying. I understand what that person's saying. I think wires got crossed. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, and coming late to a TikTok beef is always hard because number one, the narratives always change, and by the time we get to the end of it, it's never the beginning. It's like always a completely different conversation being had. Then on top of that, a lot of times people will sometimes delete videos, private them, or what have you. So then you lose a whole moment of like context, and it's like these TikTok beefs are very much, you really just have to be so tapped in and be there in the moment to catch what's going on. And otherwise you'll just be completely like on the outside of like, girl, I don't even know what the hell y'all are talking about. Like, how did we get here? Who's having that conversation?
And even the topics, the TikTok topics of the week, the way that we decide like what cycles in. So like what's been big on my For You page right now is the situation with Dank DeMoss, who is the rapper from Michigan, who she is like about 500 pounds, and she was
Oh, yeah,
turned
yeah,
away
yeah.
by the hood.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel like obviously if you engage in content, like it's going to show you more of it. I find the case so interesting because obviously when you're talking about protected classes, there has to be like a category. So federally, and
Yeah.
this is all me learning on TikTok. Federally, weight size is not a protected class, but in Michigan it is. So the caveat of that is Lyft, the drivers are also independent contractors.
Yeah.
Right.
And then obviously she had the choice to buy like an Uber XL. When arguing both sides, it's like, okay, her lawyers are going to say this was discrimination, blase, blase. Lyft is going to say the driver has his preference. She could have
Yeah.
bought an Uber XL. Her lawyers will say,
Yeah.
well, then she would have had to pay more. Then it's like,
Right.
well,
Then that's
we
not
did give
really
the option. Then
accessibility.
it's not
Yeah.
accessibility. It's
Yeah.
like, how are y'all going to argue this?
Yeah.
And seeing like people actually bring it out. I like when people are actually talking frankly, so like not just being openly fat phobic or just
Yeah.
openly like siding with her. Do you get what I'm saying? Like
Right.
on the
'Cause
whole,
I
like
think
how
that she's going to win.
like
Honestly.
how is
I
she
think
going
she's
to
gonna
win? Seriously,
just off the
someone
base. For me, I think she's going to win simply off the base of it's going to be a lot easier for them to offer her a settlement.
they're gonna settle out of
Versus
court.
Yeah.
because,
I don't even think it's
because
gonna
it's
go
a lot
to
of
trial.
it's a lot of like you said, different points. Like, well, there's this point, then there's this point, but then there's this
Yeah.
one. So I think it'll be easier for them to simply offer her a settlement, and that's a win for her. Like,
No, that's
I
a win.
genuinely
She's
think
definitely-
going to
That is a win,
get
definitely.
the
Definitely
world
gonna get money.
and get a good little settlement.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if we're just going off of what discrimination is, being denied service for the way that you look or present or whatever, she has the case. Now, some people are saying, oh, well, his car, like, he's, what if he didn't want his car to be damaged?
So
And that may be well and true. But why
yeah,
is he driving a car that could be damaged?
Yeah.
Like, again, there's always going to be something to
yeah.
be said about this case. So it's like,
Mhm.
I don't know, y'all.
She has a
points.
point, but I
Yeah.
also think that Lyft will be able, and they have the funds and the means, obviously. I
Mm-hmm.
think they'll
They
definitely be
do.
able to argue well against her,
Yeah.
considering like, so the rules of like driving is like your car can't be before this year, it can't be da da
Mm-hmm.
da 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 da.
Mhm.
Yep.
But even with that said, a 2003 car is not a 2024 car. So if this
Yeah.
man is driving a
Mhm.
22-year-old car, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a four door, you
Mm-hmm.
can even argue she would not have been able to comfortably put it on her seatbelt. That in itself is illegal. Already,
Yeah.
it's giving like,
True.
oh well, if you
Mhm.
can't comfortably and safely drive in the car, i.e., put your seatbelt on, then
Mm-hmm.
then you can't get in the car legally. Like it's like both sides have such solid arguments that it's like
Yeah.
I damn near wanted to go to trial just so I can
Yeah.
watch them argue. Seriously,
Yeah. Like,
you're
Yeah.
right.
actually,
You're right.
yeah,
You do
let's
need to
still
put a
go to
seatbelt
court.
on, but you're
Yeah,
right.
And
That is
the
this
fact is, I
definitely.
want more people to start suing in general. Use your resources. We are a free society where you can sue anybody for any goddamn thing. Let's
hmm
start taking shit to court, and so I can figure out, so I can see all the evidence.
Stop arguing
Everybody's
on
Mhm.
the
forced to
internet and argue
talk.
in the courtroom.
Hello, let's take it
There,
to the
right there.
streets. I think more people should too, and it's just like, yeah, let's. I think she's gonna be broken off a good, cute little chunk of settlement money. It's not gonna be what she's asking for, probably,
I
but
know.
it's gonna be
Oh
something
yeah,
enough
definitely not.
to settle it. And I think, well, shit, I'll take that.
Yeah, I hope she gets a settlement
Yeah.
because like first you're looking like this from like an Uber standpoint is like car transportation, and then people going to bring up, okay, well, what about planes? Why can't they adapt for like seats? And the seats are already small as shit, so of course you're going to get into that one, and then you're going to like look at the trains. It's like, oh, why can't they adapt to bigger bodies? So that's going to open like a whole other conversation if people want to bring examples. So I hope she settles, and I hope like it leads to like people, whoever comes up in that situation, be like, well, I can reference this case because this didn't
That's
adapt
what.
to my
And that's
experience.
why cases are so important, because that's what lawyers use to argue their current case. Is other cases and
Precedent.
different
Set
rulings
a
and stuff.
precedent.
Like, so it's like, yeah, like,
Hmm.
let's start bringing shit to the courthouse so we can start figuring out how we're gonna move going forward. Especially because, and this might be like, I know nobody's probably thinking about this, but I'm just now thinking about this. We actually do need to kind of really centralize what we view as discrimination, because especially the way the country is going, discrimination is going to
Hmm.
stop being taken seriously, especially because people already don't consider fat phobia serious. Like, nobody gives a fuck about fat phobia. They be like, I don't care, like, you're big. Like, fat phobia is the only one that's like really really acceptable still across the board. Like, you can say anything about somebody big and just be like, oh well, that's their own fault because they're big or whatever. So I think if we start loosening this idea of discrimination, then it's going to start, creating this loose idea across the board. So it's like, yeah, we do need to be serious about like discrimination. Now, of course, the conversation of like, how do we handle this situation? Like, we can have that conversation, but at the end of the day, like, she was still discriminated against, and like, what the end result and how we move on is a whole separate conversation. But we have to like start being honest with ourselves about you being denied something because of the way you look, the way you present, who you are. All of these things are still discrimination, and that should be a thing. Like, trying to trickle that down and water it down is like,
Well, that's
slippery
why
slope.
the airplanes do have the you do now. Granted, this is what I was thinking about, the two-seat policy and the extenders, because someone
Hmm.
sued them. So it's like they gave the
Yeah.
option, but it's a paid option. You do have to buy two seats. So even
Yeah.
with her with having to order a Uber XL, even though it's more money, it's still
Yeah.
an option.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think what I saw in the comments, again, this is like the lawyer. I did mock trial, so I'll be looking at. She said she didn't order the Uber XL because it was embarrassing, not because she couldn't afford it. So that's already you giving something
No.
for them to argue on you, like, well, you just simply didn't do it. The option was there. That's why I'm like, please, I want this to go to trial so bad. Like, please,
Yeah.
I need to see this. I need to see
Yeah.
this. Because I would like to see a resolution, because it also brings into question handicap accessibility, like people who are in
Right.
wheelchairs. Because I've seen several times where people in wheelchairs do get turned away by Uber drivers. Now, sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. Like, they'll order an Uber and their chair cannot fit in the car. That makes
Right.
sense, but there should also be like things on the app to let us know, like, there's a weight
Right.
limit. We
Right.
have this
Right.
much room in the
Yeah.
car. Da 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 da. Like,
Yeah.
so
Because
granted,
then
even if his
that'll
car
change.
could not
Yeah.
handle her weight, maybe we should see that. Maybe we
Exactly.
should have that
Yeah.
warning so that you have the
Yeah.
choice to cancel the Uber, order another one.
Exactly. That's why I feel like this lawsuit, like something good can come out of it, because at the end of the day, like even if they just determined that it wasn't discrimination, but like you said, they didn't put the proper parameters to let her know that, hey, this cannot accommodate you. Well, she didn't know that beforehand, and now she's being inconvenienced because the Uber got all the way there and then decided to cancel her. Now they're having a verbal altercation back and forth versus if
Mm-hmm.
on the app the car specifically says can accommodate these types of people with these abilities or disabilities, then it changes the way we're having conversations. Because I've actually never seen it. The only thing I've ever seen is when they'll say like a driver can't hear. They'll say the driver is deaf, to let you know.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I have not ever seen them say like this car can obviously they'll say how many people can fit, but they don't say like this can fit this type of body or this type of ability or disability. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good point. So maybe that can come out of this whole thing.
Yeah, they definitely can bring like a new like settings option to where like they can give like advance notice like, oh, this is a car that can fit X amount of people at this like weight size, like accommodating, like basically saying have like a feature where drivers can put in, hey, I can fit this many people, I can fit, different sizes. This is how wide the seats are in the back. This is how many seats I can fit in total. So I think that'll definitely like make the app to basically kind of expand on that outside to accommodate for different people. Because I feel like accommodation definitely should come out of this.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Accommodations, information, more understanding. But to Jamila's point about saying everyone's okay with like open fat phobia, even when I was like made my video and I was strictly talking about, I wonder what protected class this will be under. Like I'm asking like real questions, and you got people in the comments
Mm-hmm.
like, well, her big ass doesn't need to be in the car anyway. Well, that's not the
That's
conversation we're
not
having right
what
now,
I'm
friend.
saying.
Yeah,
Like
Focus.
focus.
Yeah.
Like so, it always is what it is on that front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that you want to promote as far as I know you say you're doing YouTube? How is your content on YouTube specifically? Is it very similar to your TikTok content, just a little bit more lengthy, or what? How do you want to maneuver continuing on your social media standpoint? Do you want to kind of stay where you're at? Do you want to advance to maybe doing like celebrity interviews? Like, where do you see yourself going with your internet persona?
So right now I'm mainly doing like shorts. Shorts is kind of like throwing like the darts thing, the same of like TikTok when I first started.
Yeah.
Long form, like I do want to have like that extended like analysis, like the stuff that I do post. The interview thing, I kind of like started that a little bit with like my Substack where like I'm interviewing people over Zoom and I just kind of do like the written one. So that's kind of extended into that. I would love to do in-person interviews. Me and my friend Tatiana, we just started a podcast like a couple of weeks ago,
Oh,
and I
lit.
think we have 3 episodes right now. The pop culture playbook, she like does like press, and she's been doing like 3 years now. So we're both kind of like doing the same thing, kind of like doing like a podcast form. So we're hoping to have that extended to where like we have our own studio because right now we're renting. So hopefully that grows into like a bigger kind of like network kind of form.
Oh, so
Gotcha.
lit.
That
Wait.
sounds
So,
really
what
good.
state are you in? Where are you located?
I'm in Georgia.
Okay, I don't
Okay,
know why I
great.
thought you were in DC. I don't know why I thought that. What I had wanted to
Yeah, I
say
get
was
mistaken for like living in DC all the time.
I really I don't know why. That's why I was like, oh, you're on Eastern Standard Time. So I knew it was a EST, but I don't know why I thought DC. What I had wanted to ask you, I was like when we were pausing, I was like pulling. I was like, no, there was something else I wanted to say, and Jamila does too. You guys both watch Love Is Blind, and you guys both do Love Is Blind recaps. I don't. I don't. I just watch everyone else's. How do you guys? I don't. I just watch everyone else's. How do you guys feel about old baby girl who just now divorcing that man with all them
I knew you
kids?
were gonna ask about Ashley, and I laughed when I saw it. I
The
was
way
like, "Girl,
everybody was like, ha ha.
you don't get nowhere being a bird." Oh,
It
I
was
was
the
laughing when I
most
saw that.
obvious update that could have ever happened. Like, I literally said, "Girl, let me know when this ends." Like, you are trying to cuss us out for telling you to leave this nigga, and it was just I laughed so hard because I didn't expect it to come this soon. That's the only funny part about it, because that was the only shocking part about it, that it happened just this soon. And I hope she
Yeah,
doesn't think she's gonna skip out on the love after the altar. Bitch, you better be there. And I expect an
they
apology
better give us love
actually.
after the altar.
I expect an apology directly. And I did invite her on the podcast. Will she come? Probably not. I did read her and that big four-headed freak to filth because they pissed me clean the fuck off. But we do have a new season coming up in a couple of weeks.
I
I'm
saw the
very
cast members.
excited.
I saw Simone's cast member reveal for that. I'm gonna be honest again.
Mhm.
I haven't watched Love Is Blind since the very first season during the panty, but I don't. I really like
We are
watch.
a cult.
You said I know. I get it. Yeah, you are because the people who watch Love Is Blind, you guys are so passionate about it.
Yeah.
Like and,
Yeah.
and so passionate and so tapped in. And I just was watching the reveal and I said, all these motherfuckers are ugly. Love don't have to be blind because ain't none of these men attractive.
I'm like,
I mean, they're in
when they said it
Minneapolis.
was- I was gonna say when they said
They were in
Minnesota,
Minneapolis,
I said,
yeah.
Interesting. I don't
Yeah.
expect much to come out of Minnesota because I don't know much about Minnesota. So let's see. Maybe boring is best. Like maybe this city is gonna actually.
All I know is it's
attract
a
some
lot of East
decent
Africans
men.
in Minneapolis and
Yeah.
Minnesota.
A lot of Liberians.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Specifically, yeah. That's where Dwight is from.
Oh, that tracks. I used to talk to this
Yes.
boyfriend.
I literally just learned that outside of Liberia, Minnesota has the highest Liberian population in the world.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I just learned that. That and then guess what's number 2?
DMV?
Philly.
Huh?
Philly.
Oh. Ah. Not Philly.
Yes, I was like, wow, that's really interesting. So yeah,
Were you
I'm
born and
sure-
raised in Georgia, Simone?
So, my parents, like, they immigrated like the 90s. They settled in Atlanta. I was born and raised here. I've been
they
moving
immigrate?
around like Metro for like almost forever. So, like, right now I'm mainly like back in Atlanta. So, yeah.
Okay, period. Jimmy lives in Atlanta too. Where'd they immigrate from?
They immigrated from Congo.
Oh,
period.
free the
Okay.
Congo, period.
Yes.
How do you
So,
feel about like everything
yeah,
that's
I
been
was gonna
going on
say.
in the I don't know why I thought you were from Rwanda. I don't know where I got that from. When I say I be fucking everyone flag up, I'd be like,
I was gonna say Mecca will have something in her head and just.
I
go
was
with it and be
calling
like, oh,
people
well,
completely different names. Like, what? That is not okay.
It's okay. Like, we get confused for different like things like all the time. I've been confused as like Kenyan. People think I'm Nigerian, which makes sense because there's a lot of Nigerians in Atlanta, so I get it.
But in
Yeah,
the face,
it's
you
so many
absolutely do.
Nigerians.
I would have thought you were Kenyan too. I could see that absolutely.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay, so have you ever been back? Do you go back a lot?
So my parents took me for the first time when I was 8,
Okay.
and then we lived over there for like a year and a half with like my grandparents. My mom moved over there, and then I came back here to live with my aunt and my uncle, and I've been here since. I go back like every 2 years. The last time I was back was like Christmas 2023.
Okay, so recent. Okay, period.
Yeah. Wow. So seeing the conversations happening about the Free the Congo movement, how has that been for you, having such a very close tie and being there so recently? Like, what has that been like for you?
So for me, I think for like anyone that's like out of the country, because like I'm first gen and I still got majority of my family like back over there. Like we're on the western part, so like we're okay, we're good.
Okay.
And a lot of times people assume like since we're like over here, it's like, oh yeah, we're not feeling it. We are. We're like calling family every day. There's some days we don't like hear from them for like 1 or 2 weeks, and that's because of like internet blackouts. And you try the best you can, even though you know like it's a bigger like issue. Like this has been going on since before I was born,
Yeah.
and before my parents are born.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of like unpacking and like history and just like who's involved in what. And like whenever like people ask me like, oh, what can I do, I'm just like, listen, just let people know, just learn
So for
about
the
it.
people who don't know like what exactly going on, could you give us like a quick like snapshot image of like what is the crisis going on in Congo?
So essentially the crisis mainly comes down to resources, mainly just like cobalt and coltan. And that's like a tech resource because that's where you get like all your batteries from, all electronics. And essentially everyone wants their hands on it. And this one actor says like David like something. He said like Congo would be the richest country in the world, but essentially it's one of the poorest in the world because everyone wants in on the resources. And this is like a common thing with like African governments. The government really doesn't give a damn about the people. They really just want to get their back pocket, and that's really with like our new president now. And he's been in like there for like 2 years. And that's a long conversation about the government. That's a lot. But really, it is just daily survival a lot of the time. And like with like stuff recently, with like basically one city on the east got captured, and that's basically a signifier. Is like, okay, they get one city, they can get the whole country. So that's why you have so many protests going on. That's why you have people burning embassies, people essentially locking down. I called my aunt this morning, and basically they had like shut down the schools and offices for 2 days now. So basically they're just hunkered down until whatever the government decides to do.
Damn.
So you know
Yeah,
what?
it's a lot.
It's like in real time we are watching so many African countries try and like escape and get under the thumb of like colonialism. And
Yeah.
since I think we're
Mm-hmm.
watching it in like modern day, we America did that like whatever 300 years ago and did we really cuz like whatever. But we the way that with like African countries you actively are seeing cuz my friend and my assistant Eddie, he's Gabonese, and Gabon is like right
Mm-hmm.
now kind of same situation. President didn't want to like real shit. You can't get a hold of folks. You can't. And so like seeing it up close, like him trying to call his mom and like with the whole like TikTok ban, he was like, "Oh no, if you still want to get on TikTok and they ban it, I can tell you how to do that because we had blocks in my country a couple years ago, so I know how to do the VPNs. Like I can help you do that." And it was like, that's so crazy that like they
Yeah.
turn the internet off
Mm-hmm.
in
They
the entire
just,
country and you know how to get
Yeah.
internet. Like
those things
these are
happen.
things that like in America at least right now
It seems so
this is the
foreign
first
to
time we're
us.
dealing with the
Mm-hmm.
government blocking or turning or trying to turn something off. Whereas this is
Yeah.
something, and even Faiza, Port of Somalia, when she was on here, she's lived all over the place. She's lived in Kenya, Dubai, UK, and she
Mm-hmm.
was saying, when she went to high school in Dubai, and when she left the states with MySpace. When she got to Dubai, she no longer had it because it was blocked. So it's like we
Mm-hmm.
don't even have a concept of a lot of the shit going on. So I
Yeah.
I, I think that even though it's hard to see some of the imagery that we've been seeing from like all of these conflicts all over the world, it is necessary because it's like you don't. I know I saw on my timeline like somebody had reposted they said it was in the Congo, but it was like bodies and it was like them just kind of laid out, and I don't like shit like that. Like I
Mm-hmm.
really don't. I don't like
Yeah.
blood and
Yeah.
gore, like not when it's real blood and gore. But I just scrolled past it, but I wasn't mad because in my head I was like, people need to see this. Like people need to see that this is really going on.
Because
This
that's
is real.
literally
Like
Mm-hmm.
happening.
this is really
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane. And when I see like just how tied in with that specific crisis in Congo and seeing how Elon Musk has such a huge hand in that because of his electric cars and using all of those things and just kind of seeing his level of success continually growing. It is such a weird situation to be like, what do we even do? And even like
I
there
mean,
was a
he's a white
call
South
for us.
African, so he's like the
We
Yeah.
Antichrist
expected
already.
nothing
So,
less. Right. I
Yeah.
expected him to be nothing less than evil. But to just
like, I
see
just feel
how
like
much
white
power
South
he's
Africans are a
obtaining.
different level of evil.
Yeah, they're a
Honestly,
different level of fucking crazy. But to see how much power and access he's obtaining is kind of scary because it's like he clearly doesn't have any type of, you know, heart
regard.
to keep it
None.
to
No
keep
heart. No
it,
soul.
simple. And it's like
He don't
I
even
don't
fuck
know,
with his
it's
kids.
crazy. Yeah, it's a
Oh yeah.
weird world we're living in. How do you feel, considering you're first generation and you have such ties to your African community, but also the Black American community? Do you feel like you kind of present as more so an African immigrant, or do you feel more closely tied to the Black American experience? How has that been for you, kind of toting the line of both?
So for me, I grew up knowing that I was black, like straight up. I didn't know the difference between like race and ethnicity until I went to go visit over there. And then my parents would tell me, "Oh yeah, you're black, but we're from over here." So that was the first time I learned about it. And this is mainly like with like moving all the time. It wasn't until I was like probably in college I identified with my ethnicity more, because with like high school we grew up in suburbia, and I was like one of like two or three black kids in every class. So
Okay.
we were black. Like it didn't matter where we were from. We got here until we got graduate. And so with me, I like identify with more like I understand, because my parents raised me as like, okay, you know who you are, but also, we're a big old place of different kinds of people from different places. Like they knew like where they were and also respected the place where they were because they would not be able to be here if it wasn't for the work done for by Black Americans because they left at a time like basically there was a whole dictator like in the 90s. They basically left there, went over here, were able to actually have a life, actually set up something for their kids. So for me, I like identify with, you know, my identity, but I've just grown up with like Black American culture for so long. So I have the awareness of like who I am, but also like the environment that I'm in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for
I
sure. That
definitely
definitely
think
makes
that
sense.
like a lot of the diaspora war like struggle is definitely spurred on by white supremacy. Cause like I've asked
Okay.
my uncle and like my
Yeah.
family members who came here like in the '60s or in the late '50s, early '60s, and they were always like this energy like this was not how it was when they came out here like 50 years ago. It was just kind of
Mhm.
like
Mm-hmm.
obviously you're they like they clock that you're different and you're from Africa and like you have those little nuanced things, but I think that our awareness on the internet of each other is it's good and bad. I just think it's
Mm-hmm.
good and bad. And a lot of the stuff that I've seen on the internet, like I've grown up hearing, but it I don't know. The internet is such a place that the internet amps everything up. So I can definitely
It
see there
Mm-hmm.
are
does.
African people who like or think they're better than Black American people. Like I've definitely heard that, but that was
Yeah.
not like majority, if that makes sense. Like that was not like
Yeah.
Mhm.
well, that was like a sentiment that's like maybe one auntie over here who just like that's that one auntie. It's like okay,
Mm-hmm.
girl, whatever, and everyone else just go
Yeah.
on about their
Yeah,
business.
like I didn't know about like diaspora wars being a thing until like I got to college and there would have like conversations happen and one
Yeah.
person who's like who like immigrated when they were like four to America, they'll begin as somebody who's like Black American. That was the first time I had an introduction to it. Whenever like it pops up on the
Yeah.
internet, I feel like
That's
the
the
middle
same.
child because I'm like,
Well,
can we just get
even
along?
like at Hampton, we had clubs for like the diaspora people. Like that's the thing. At a HBCU, everyone's black, so
Mhm.
having the specific clubs, it wasn't even like no beat. Like I really didn't even know people were funking until like later adulthood. Probably the only time I
Mm-hmm.
was in Towson because that's a PWI and people are more openly separated. But it was
Mhm.
definitely more seen just like, oh, I'm Caribbean, like we're doing the Caribbean Association, oh, the East African Association, the West African, like people definitely were allowed to be what they were, and it wasn't seen as like we're
Mhm.
beefing or funking because we're all in the same place. And at a
Yeah.
HBCU, it's like we're all aware that we're all black, so it was
Yeah.
more of like
Mm-hmm.
let's celebrate each other's differences. Because even remember Battle of the States, which is like
Mhm.
a talent show competition between all the
Mhm.
states and regions. Hampton had a lot
Mm-hmm.
of different stuff where it was like we're all different and that's okay. Like it's cool.
Mhm.
Like we don't have to be like I never at
Yeah.
any point in time. And I knew I had a lot of Caribbean. One of my close friends is Caribbean. My best friend's Ghanaian. Like I never was around other black people of the diaspora and
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, you're being weird to
Mm-hmm.
me." That's some internet shit. I
Yeah.
really believe that's internet
It
shit.
is.
Yeah.
So I actually had when we were in college when I had transferred to Georgia State. Of course, so I was the president of the Black Student Alliance in Georgia State, and we had what was called Caribsa was basically the Caribbean Student Association. Then we had an African Student Association, I believe it was. I can't remember what it was actually
Mm-hmm.
called. And I remember specifically we had a collaborative event and with all of those, and we wanted to do basically like what are the similarities, like what is like let's have this diaspora conversation because around that time is when that conversation started to happen on Twitter, and so
Mm-hmm.
we started to see it. So it was like let's have all the organizations come together and let's see what exactly this conversation is in real time, and actually hearing the perspective of Caribbean people and continental African people talk about their perspective of Black Americans and how we are perceived in those countries specifically, and how
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, when we grow up this is what we see. They had a very limited view, or and being able to like yeah, I'm not gonna lie, our parents were taught these things, and it just opened up such a huge conversation for us. And I feel like that was the first time I ever even conceptually thought that I didn't even think that people in the Caribbean or other African nations were thinking of Black Americans differently. I was like, oh, you know what? Now that you say like I mean, yeah, it is it's a big difference between just our cultures. Like there is very specific African American, or I would say Black American culture. There is
Mm-hmm.
very specific Caribbean household culture. There
Mm-hmm.
is very specific a whole bunch of, I would say, between East African, Southern African, and
Mm-hmm.
even West African. Like I didn't realize just how different our upbringings were based off of like where we're from. But then also what we learned at that time is just how similar we were too. And then when you see like, damn, the similarities are actually insane considering we grew up in such different areas. And then you remember the triangle slave trade. And it's
Yep.
like so much was still preserved. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wow, that is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I would think my experience is a little bit similar to Simone because being in California, Black History Month, everyone was just like lumped together, like, all right, niggas,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it's your month, do your thing. Mind you, I had like I was I was like in AP classes, so I had like Nigerian, I had a Haitian friend, had all these friends,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember like my mom was really big on like representing both sides, so we always like have like some Kenyan prince come, like she would always send for Kenyan prince. I would have like one of my aunts come in and talk, but then she was also cool with like one of the Tuskegee Airman's daughter and his widow,
Mm-hmm.
so they would come in
Mm-hmm.
and talk. And like I didn't, it honestly wasn't till I went to Hampton that there was stuff that I grew up doing that I didn't realize was necessarily like this was Kenyan and this is African American. It was just kind of like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is what my family does. Like I didn't associate it with being one thing or the other. But then
Mm-hmm.
once I did, I was like, oh wow, like that's cool. And then
Mm-hmm.
even
Yeah.
when I started getting jokes, like I remember on this was like a TikTok because it's been like in adulthood. Someone said this girl made a joke about how West Africans are so loud. And I grew up, no, seriously, but I, like, if you like, in comparison to like East Africans. And so I
Mm-hmm.
had a friend growing up, her family was Nigerian. And up until that point, I only associated accents from Africa with Kenyans, obviously. So when we were
Mm-hmm.
kids and
Mm-hmm.
I went to her, into her people's house, I was like, yes but no, you know what I'm saying, like okay, I can clock that
Mm-hmm.
that is sounds similar, but it's also very
Mm-hmm.
different. But also you
A
guys
slight
act
difference,
very very
yeah.
different. Like Kenyans are much more like, I won't say reserved, but like not loud. And but then when you
Mm-hmm.
look at it like from the transatlantic slave trade and that African Americans come from a lot of West African culture,
Mm-hmm.
that is more akin to like my dad's side of the family, who is like
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
unabashedly African American, unabashedly loud, and like oh, like
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
very similar to like when you be
Yep.
around Nigerians families and they're just yelling across the house. Like Kenyans don't really
Mm-hmm.
do that type of shit. So it's like, oh, y'all are very different.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. You see the clock like all the time when someone's African. I remember being like at a Walmart with like my auntie one time, and this one woman like she had overheard her, and she had walked over, and my aunt had just had a baby. She just had like in the carrier on her chest.
yeah.
She was like, "Oh, she looks so nice," and they just got into conversation. I'm just like, "Y'all just met like 10 seconds ago. We don't know her," and I was like 14, and she was like, "Oh, how are you?" And she could see it like in my face.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how easy it was to clock it until that
No,
happened.
the features are. I always talk about this on TikTok because I think it's really really interesting. We are all the same. We are so different. We were just in. I'm in Dallas right now. We were just in Walmart and we were like laughing because it's like African, 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 like African American, African. Because even like the way that like the old men walk, like whereas older black men like walk with like a swagger, like like older African men kind of pace. They're slow. They are
Yep.
attentive. Not a care in the world. Like the way that you carry yourself, like, and that's why when people be like, I feel like people, it doesn't matter what you are. If you're born in America, people outside of America are gonna clock that you're American. And that's the other part about the national
Yeah.
awards when, like, Caribbean Americans, like specific country African Americans get mad, like I'm this and I'm not American. It's like, baby, if you were born and raised in America, you don't even realize you're
You're
carrying
there.
yourself so different from everyone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
They can tell.
You got
Yeah.
some American ways about
Yeah.
you. You're gonna pick up the ways of the world around you always, no matter where you're from. Like even me being living in Georgia for so long, like I've picked up facets of Atlanta culture and it's just
Hmm.
gonna be a part of me no matter what. Like where you spend a lot of your time, it's trickling up in you and we can tell.
Yeah, that's like it's really like funny you say because like my uncle Earl, who was like he married in my family for like one of my aunties, he came up in Chicago. He came to Atlanta in the '80s, and he picked
Mm.
up so much. And when he went to go visit like our family for the first time, they clocked him easy. It's just like they're just like, oh yeah,
I mean, the 80s
yeah,
was 40
yeah.
years
She
ago.
married an American man. She married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting. I really do. I think it's something that you can appreciate, and it doesn't have to be looked at as a bad thing. And pointing the differences out doesn't have to be like this whole big ass, like it's not an insult. It's just
Yeah.
simply just because I was
It's
dating
just
this
a
boy
thing.
from the UK, and the way that he was clocking me, but I was clocking him, I'm like, what is beans and toast? Mind you, I love that joke so bad because when I made that joke to him, he did not think it's funny. Like he was like, "Wait, stop."
Mhm.
Like, "Oh,
No,
wait, were
like
you
I actually
sensitive
do
about the
eat
beans
it.
and toast?" It wasn't.
And it's like, mind you, I thought the beans and toast was funny because I thought it was like a white British thing. No,
No,
they all eat the
no, they
beans and
all eat the
toast.
beans and toast.
Yeah,
That's
I was about to find that out. I thought it was just white British
no.
people. Everybody eat
No,
it.
they're
That's why
all
when they were
eating the
saying, I was like,
beans and
no,
toast.
because I made that joke to him, and he was like, it's not funny, Mecca.
It's like, yeah, it is actually. You're eating tomato beans on a piece of
Toast.
toast. Wow, this has been great. Can you please let the people know where they can find you?
Sure, y'all can find me at Simply Simone pretty much everywhere. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. My Siri just went off. You can find me at
Well, I ain't
Simply
even here,
Simone
so you
on.
all good.
It's, you can find me Simply Simone on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, pretty much everywhere. I'm pretty much
Okay.
like almost on every app, whatever my phone let me have storage for. You can find me on those places.
Okay,
Sounds
period.
good. Sounds good. And your podcast, what is it called?
It's called the Pop Culture Playbook. It's on Spotify and Apple Music. We post new episodes on Thursdays. Yeah,
Oh,
we did
come
Thursdays.
on, same day. So after
Yes,
you listen to
Thursdays.
Unhinged anymore, you can listen to the Pop Culture Playbook. It actually is
Exactly.
Thursday today as well. So Pop
Yes.
Culture Playbook and Unhinged anymore have dropped if you don't know. So go listen. And you
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, girl. This was a treat. Love the
Thank y'all for
perspective you brought
having
to
me
the table.
you
on.
are
This was
good.
fun.
Absolutely.